Welcome, dear listener, to another quiet journey into the soft and shimmering places where science meets serenity. Tonight, we drift far beneath the waking world, into a realm that moves at a slower rhythm than anything on land. The deep sea is a cradle of silence, a vast and shadowed world where time seems to stretch out like a long exhale, and where life has shaped itself into forms so gentle, strange, and wondrous that simply imagining them can loosen the mind into release. As you settle in, I invite you to let the noise of the day ebb away, like tide water gently pulling back from the shore, leaving only the smoothness of this moment behind. We are going to explore the most relaxing wonders of the deep ocean, a place where darkness becomes a kind of comfort and where glowing creatures drift like stars suspended in an underwater night sky. Before you begin drifting into rest, if you'd like to support this peaceful corner of the internet, feel free to like the video, subscribe to the channel, or leave a soft comment about your favorite deep-sea creature. You can do it now, or whenever you feel ready, before your eyes grow too heavy to stay awake. It helps this sleepy little community grow, and it means more than you know. When you're done, you can simply let yourself sink into the unfolding calm. Let's begin. Imagine the ocean's surface first. The familiar ripples, the silvery play of moonlight across a moving field of water, the rhythmic pulse of waves rolling in and out like a slow, steady breath. Just beneath that brightness lies a gradient of fading blues, each layer a little dimmer, a little quieter, carrying you down into a place that feels both ancient and welcoming. As you drift deeper, the light around you softens until shapes become silhouettes, then shadows, then whispers of movement. It is in this twilight descent, this gentle slipping away from the surface world, that the deep sea begins to reveal itself. And as you follow the sinking glow of the last traces of day, allow yourself to sink with it in your imagination. Allow your shoulders to soften, the first of our relaxation reminders, and let yourself settle into the quiet comfort of knowing that you are safe, supported, and drifting slowly into the hush of the deep. The upper layers of the ocean still hold fragments of light, thin beams that fall like long, ghostly ribbons through water. But these ribbons perish as you descend. At around 200 meters, you enter what marine scientists call the mesopelagic zone, the twilight zone. Here, the world takes on a subdued blue-gray tone, a muted dreamscape filled with faint flickers of movement, like memories drifting just out of focus. It's within this calm shadowland that the first of our deep-sea wonders awaits, the giant squid, a creature whose presence has stirred myth and imagination for centuries. Sailors once believed they were monstrous, whirlpool-making beings capable of dragging entire ships to their doom. But the truth is far gentler and far more miraculous. In reality, the giant squid is a shy and elusive wanderer, preferring the quiet midwaters far from human eyes. There is something astonishingly peaceful about the giant squid when we imagine it not as a monster, but as a silent traveler. Its skin carries a soft reddish tone that fades into the darkness, and its arms, long and flexible, drift with the slow confidence of a creature built for stillness. But the most mesmerizing feature of the giant squid is its eyes larger than any other animal's, spanning almost the size of a dinner plate. They are vast, glassy pools designed for absorbing what little light survives this far below. In the darkness, these eyes pick up the faint gleam of bioluminescent flashes made by other creatures, by drifting jellies, by the ghostly trails of organisms disturbed by passing currents. The giant squid does not rush. Its world is too still for that. It glides through water as if it has all the time in the world, guided by the quiet glow of these soft, luminous whispers. Imagine drifting beside such a creature, surrounded by silence so complete that it becomes its own kind of music. The squid's mantle expands and contracts in a slow, almost meditative rhythm, propelling it gently forward. Its movement has the softness of a drifting cloud, the patience of a falling leaf spiraling on its way to the forest floor. In this world of muted colors and slow motion, nothing needs to hurry. Even predators and prey understand that energy is precious and speed is a rare luxury. Everything here is built for efficiency and calm. You can almost feel the quiet settling into your own body as you picture it, like a blanket of cool, deep blue wrapped around your thoughts. A little deeper still, far enough down that sunlight becomes no more than a memory, another extraordinary creature waits in the widening dark. The vampire squid, despite its dramatic name, is one of the gentlest beings in the sea. It does not feast on blood or chase down prey. Instead, it drifts through the stillness like a tiny shadow, gathering marine snow, the falling flakes of dead plankton, microscopic organisms, and organic fragments that descend from the world above. To the vampire squid, these drifting specks are treasure, quiet nourishment that requires no chase and no struggle. It moves with such minimal effort that its delicate webbing spreads between its arms like the folds of an elegant umbrella, creating the impression of a tiny, floating lantern whose light is not made of flame, but of bioluminescence. Bioluminescence is one of the most enchanting phenomena in the deep sea. It is a soft, natural glow produced by chemical reactions within the bodies of certain organisms. In the vampire squid, this glow appears as a halo of delicate blue points, scattered like distant stars across its soft flesh. These lights can shimmer gently, fading and rising in brightness, creating a kind of underwater constellation that moves with the slow pulse of the animal. For the vampire squid, these glimmers are not just beautiful, they are tools for survival, confusing potential predators or helping the creature blend into the scattered points of light around it. But for us, imagining these tiny lights flickering in the darkness can evoke a deep sense of peace, like gazing at the night sky through a window while the world around you sleeps. As you continue sinking into this imagined depth, the water grows cooler, the pressure around you steadier, pressing not in a threatening way, but in a way that feels enveloping and supportive, like being held by a quiet, steady presence. This pressure is immense, reaching hundreds of times more than what you experience at the surface, yet the creatures who live here have evolved in perfect harmony with it. Their bodies are soft, flexible, and mostly free of rigid structures that could shatter under the weight. This softness, rather than being a weakness, is one of the great strengths of deep sea life. It allows these beings to flow with their environment rather than resist it, an adaptation that feels like a lesson subtly drifting into the imagination. that sometimes softness, not hardness, is what allows one to endure. Deeper still, the world transforms again. Here we encounter the anglerfish, a creature that has captivated imaginations with its eerie but strangely enchanting glow. The anglerfish carries its own lantern, a bioluminescent lure that dangles gently in front of its face like a floating star. This beacon is created through a partnership with bacteria that emit a cold blue light, helping the anglerfish navigate the darkness and draw in curious prey. But despite its fearsome appearance in photographs, the anglerfish moves slowly and deliberately in the real deep sea, conserving precious energy. It waits with tremendous patience, letting its little light sway softly in the water, creating a hypnotic pulse that mirrors the slow, rocking motion of the abyss. Picture that tiny lantern now, a single point of blue suspended in endless blackness, like a star seen from a great distance. Around it, the anglerfish barely moves. It is the model of stillness, existing in a world where nothing rushes and everything drifts. The deep sea is full of such glowing signals, brief flashes, luminous trails, soft pulses that rise and fall like the quiet breaths of a sleeping world. Each glow has a purpose, a story shaped by millions of years of evolution. Some lights are lures, some are warnings, some are simply a way for animals to communicate in a place where voices do not carry. But all of them create a landscape of gentle, flickering constellations that can turn the darkness into something calm and wondrous. Farther down the slope of the deep ocean's layers, another remarkable creature glides into our journey, the gulper eel. Its long, ribbon-like body moves with a graceful, sinuous flow. What makes the gulper eel so unforgettable is its expansive jaw, a marvel of biological engineering that can unfurl like a great billowing sail. This enormous mouth allows the gulper eel to swallow prey much larger than itself, an adaptation that reflects the scarcity of food in these depths. But again, there is no frantic hunting here. The gulper eel relies on patience. It moves quietly, sometimes allowing glowing organs along its tail to emit faint lights to attract prey. In the stillness of the deep, every motion is measured, every gesture conserving energy, in a world where meals are unpredictable and precious. As you imagine these creatures drifting through the dark, you may notice how the pace of this underwater world begins to seep into your thoughts. The deep sea has a way of slowing the mind, of unraveling tension strand by strand. Everything here happens on a different time scale, not the rushed tempo of surface life, but a slow, steady rhythm that feels almost timeless. The giant squid gliding like a ghostly dancer, the vampire squid collecting falling flakes of life, the anglerfish waiting beside its lonely light, the gulper eel drifting with its silken body. Each one is a reminder of how life can thrive in quietness and shadow, shaped by patience rather than speed. Even the landscape itself contributes to this sense of serenity. The seafloor, when it appears at last, is covered in soft sediment that drifts in tiny clouds when disturbed. Strange, delicate corals grow in shapes that resemble frozen lightning or intricate lacework. Slow-moving starfish creep with unhurried determination. And everywhere, the faint snow of organic matter continues to fall, a constant, gentle rain that feeds the hidden world below. In this soft, dim environment, even predators become surprisingly calm figures, moving with deliberation and necessity rather than aggression. It is a realm where every creature has learned to move with intention, conserving strength, trusting the rhythms of the deep. As we approach the close of this first chapter of our descent, imagine looking upward through the water. The surface is impossibly far away now, a distant ceiling of faint light that hardly reaches your eyes. Yet there is no sense of being lost. Instead, there is a strange, soothing comfort in being surrounded by the deep. The darkness is not empty, it is full of life. You, too, are safe here in this imagined world, drifting with the creatures who have mastered the art of living slowly, gracefully, and quietly in the vastness. We will continue this journey in the next part, sinking deeper into the ocean's mysteries, discovering how pressure shapes life into forms that defy imagination, and how survival here is a quiet ballet of adaptation and patience. For now, simply let the images linger, the soft glow of the vampire squid, the patient light of the anglerfish, the silent glide of the giant squid in the twilight waters. Let these impressions settle in your mind like gentle currents easing you toward rest. As we continue our descent into the vast architecture of the deep, imagine the faint memories of sunlight dissolving behind you, thinning into soft strands until they disappear entirely. The surface world becomes a distant echo, no longer pressing at the edges of your thoughts. Here, in the tranquil stillness beneath the twilight zone, the water becomes heavier, not in burden but in presence, as if each layer were a quiet curtain drawing you deeper into the ocean's secret chambers. The darkness grows thicker and softer, wrapping around you like a velvety night. Yet within this darkness, life persists, gentle, glowing, drifting, life that seems to exist in slow motion, untouched by haste. The creatures who dwell here carry with them the quiet lessons of survival without struggle, of endurance without force, of beauty shaped by silence and shadow. The anglerfish's little lantern has long faded into the distance, but the memory of its solitary glow lingers like a small star trailing behind in your mind. Ahead lies a world sculpted by pressure so immense that it would crush any unadapted body into stillness. Yet the animals here move as though suspended in a dream. The pressure at these depths is hundreds of times stronger than at the surface, a continuous, embracing force that squeezes every space and crevice. Rigid structures cannot withstand it. Delicate bones would snap like fragile twigs in a storm. But the deep-sea creatures have evolved in harmony with this environment. Their tissues are soft, malleable, often gelatinous, designed to yield rather than resist, to bend rather than break. It is a softness that holds its own kind of strength, a quiet strength that lets them remain untroubled by the crushing surroundings. One such creature is the comb jelly. Though not a true jellyfish, its appearance evokes the same floating, translucent elegance. It moves with a gentle flutter of rows of tiny cilia, thousands of them, beating in coordinated waves that ripple across its body. As these cilia move, they scatter the faintest glints of light, producing shimmering rainbows that dance along the creature's surface. In the complete darkness of the deep, these shimmering ribbons create a sight so delicate that it feels like watching a dream take shape. soft, prismatic hues sliding across a body made almost entirely of water. The comb jelly is a creature of extraordinary fragility, but in its native environment, it is perfectly adapted. Its body, lacking rigid bones or thick muscle, offers no hard surfaces for the pressure to crush. Instead, it simply yields, floating in quiet equilibrium with its surroundings. Imagine being near such a creature, suspended in the same dark water, watching its slow, repetitive pulses as if it were a glowing heartbeat of the ocean itself. The comb jelly does not hurry. It follows the slow drift of the deep sea's gentle currents, feeding on microscopic organisms that wander too close. Its digestive system, like its body, is simple and efficient, absorbing what it needs and releasing what it doesn't with quiet ease. In many ways, the comb jelly embodies a deep-sea philosophy. Move slowly, take only what you need, shine softly in your own way. As you picture its calm fluttering, allow the image to settle over your mind like a thin, comforting veil, smoothing out the jagged edges of the day. Not far from where comb jellies drift, the blobfish also moves through this dreamlike realm. On land, outside of its pressurized home, the blobfish appears saggy and collapsed, a symbol often used to represent awkwardness or deformity. But such depictions are misleading. In its true environment, deep, cold, and high-pressure waters, the blobfish is perfectly shaped for survival. Its flesh is less dense than water, allowing it to hover effortlessly just above the sea floor, conserving energy by avoiding the need for strong muscles or active swimming. Its body, under the immense pressure of the deep, retains a smooth, rounded form, stable and functional. This creature is not built for speed or aggression, but for patience and balance, an existence defined by quiet suspension and steady waiting. The blobfish's way of life offers a soothing metaphor for drifting without resistance. It is a creature content to let the world move around it at its own pace, conserving energy while trusting the environment to support it. As you imagine the blobfish in its proper form, buoyant, peaceful, suspended in equilibrium, you may feel a gentle invitation to soften your own resistance to the moment, to trust that you, too, can float quietly amid the currents of your inner world. And as this image settles, take a slow moment to acknowledge the stillness surrounding you, letting your internal waters calm as if settling into the same deep, hushed stability that cradles the blobfish in its quiet domain. The deeper we drift, the more the pressure shapes the inhabitants into forms that appear surreal, almost otherworldly. Among them is the giant isopod, an oversized cousin of the familiar pillbug. But while its terrestrial relatives scuttle quickly across the forest floor, the giant isopod moves with unhurried certainty across the sea floor. Its armored segments gleam with a faint, muted sheen, and its long antennae stretch ahead of it like slow-moving sensors, feeling for any sign of food. In these depths, meals are rare, and so the giant isopod has adapted with a metabolism so slow and efficient that it can go months, sometimes even years without eating. When food does appear, perhaps the remains of a whale fall or a fish carcass drifting downward from the brighter waters above, the giant isopod becomes a steady participant in the deep sea's quiet recycling system. There is something calming in imagining this creature's steady patience. It does not rush. It does not worry. It understands, in the quiet language of evolution, that energy must be conserved and that scarcity is a natural part of life in the deep. Yet there is no desperation in its movements, only calm purpose, a slow and methodical exploration of the cold sediment beneath it. The giant isopod reminds us that not every hunger demands immediate satisfaction. Some can be held gently, carried with patience, and allowed to soften with time. This perspective can be soothing when pictured in the stillness of your own thoughts, where the pressures of the day begin to dissolve like sand carried away on a soft wave. Around this depth, the temperature has dropped sharply. The water is near freezing, a level of cold that would be life-threatening to surface creatures. But here it is simply part of the environment's steady embrace. The cold slows metabolic processes, encouraging creatures to move less, use less energy, and maintain long, slow rhythms of life. This cold is not a harsh bite, but a constant, quiet stillness, a reminder that slowness and conservation are not just strategies for survival, they are part of the gentle balance that defines the deep-sea ecosystem. Every heartbeat, every drifting movement, every flicker of bioluminescence is carefully measured and delicately placed within this frozen world. As we journey farther, imagine a slow snowfall of organic matter drifting from above, what scientists call marine snow. It falls in endless, soft motion, flakes of dead plankton, fragments of fish scales, the remains of tiny life forms that lived out their brief days in the layers above. This snow is the lifeblood of the deep, a quiet and continuous gift from the surface that nourishes countless creatures below. The descent of marine snow creates a rhythm as gentle as the drifting of autumn leaves. It sets the pace for the beings who feed upon it, shaping their lives around this slow, endless fall. Among the creatures that rely on this shower is the grenadier fish, a long, tapering animal with large, sensitive eyes and a powerful sense of smell. It glides cautiously above the seafloor, its nose guiding it to any trace of food that might have settled in the sediment. The grenadier's movements are deliberate, its body swaying slightly with each soft pulse of its tail. It does not wander aimlessly, but follows the silent cues carried on the water's faint scents, tiny vibrations, patterns of cold and warmth that guide its path. The grenadier's life is one of constant searching, but the searching is not frantic. In this calm realm, its patience is its greatest tool. Nearby, the barrel-eye fish drifts with a mystery that borders on the surreal. Its transparent head forms a delicate dome through which its bright green eyes gaze upward, scanning for the silhouettes of drifting jellies above. These upward-pointing eyes are encased in a clear, fluid-filled shield that protects them from the stinging cells of the jellies it often steals food from. As it floats in the darkness, its gaze appears distant, contemplative, as though the fish is perpetually staring into a world just beyond our understanding. The barrel-eye fish's serene stillness is uncanny. It barely moves, allowing its small fins to stabilize it with minimal effort. Its entire existence is a study in precision and efficiency, waiting for the perfect moment to tilt its eyes forward and capture a drifting morsel. In the soft gloom, the barrel-eye becomes a symbol of quiet focus, its transparent head an elegant reminder that clarity often comes when movement slows. And then there is the sea spider, a delicate and spindly creature whose thin legs stretch out like threads of shadow. Though its appearance may seem eerie to surface dwellers, the sea spider itself is remarkably gentle. It feeds by inserting its small mouth into soft corals or tiny invertebrates, drawing nourishment with slow, careful motions that reveal an unexpected tenderness. Its body is so slender that much of its internal anatomy is housed within its legs, allowing it to keep its central form light and balanced. Watching a sea spider move across the seafloor is like witnessing a slow dance, each step placed deliberately, each motion measured so as not to disturb the fragile world around it. As you envision these creatures moving in their slow, unhurried rhythms, you may notice a similar stillness settling into your own body. In fact, if you feel comfortable, allow yourself to take a slow breath, gently deepening the calm, the second of our 3 relaxation reminders woven across this journey. Let the breath move through you like a mild current, smoothing the moment, softening whatever lingers from the day. As you exhale, imagine releasing any tension into the deep sea around you, where darkness transforms strain into silence. What makes these creatures so remarkable is not just their shapes or colors or unusual adaptations, but the way each one seems perfectly woven into the environment it inhabits. They thrive in conditions that most life on Earth could never endure: extreme pressure, perpetual darkness, near freezing temperatures, and a scarcity of food, not by resisting these conditions but by embracing them. Life in the deep is a slow and deliberate art, honed over millions of years, shaped by forces invisible to the human eye. And in this slow, ancient shaping, the deep sea reveals a truth that resonates quietly in the background of the mind, that even in environments defined by difficulty, beauty can flourish in forms more gentle than expected. Were these creatures to rise toward the surface, their delicate structures would lose the balance that sustains them. The pressure that supports their soft bodies would fall away. The cold would evaporate, and the bright light would overwhelm their adapted senses. The blobfish would collapse into the sagging form so often seen in photos. The anglerfish's fragile lure would shrivel in the warmth of the sun. The comb jelly's glimmering phantasms would melt like frost touched by dawn. The very conditions that make surface life possible would unravel the deep-sea creature's existence. This contrast serves as a soft reminder that every environment nurtures its own kind of life, and that what appears strange or fragile in one context may be perfectly suited for another. As you reflect on that idea, the deep sea becomes a metaphor for the hidden, pressured layers within ourselves, the parts that belong to darkness, quiet, and introspection. Just as the deep sea creatures glow in the darkness, small inner lights can rise to guide us through the obscured spaces of thought and memory. Just as the creatures adapt to pressure by softening, not hardening, we too can find resilience in gentleness. And just as the deep ocean moves at an unhurried pace, time itself can stretch into calmness when we allow ourselves to drift rather than resist. Here in this imagined descent, the world becomes stiller. The snowfall of marine snow grows thicker. The cold becomes familiar. The creatures drift like slow-moving stars in a boundless night. Every flicker of bioluminescence feels like a heartbeat of the deep. The longer you linger here, the more natural this world feels, as though your thoughts themselves have adopted the rhythm of the ocean's deep layers. And as we prepare to continue this journey in the next part, imagine the gentle curve of the sea floor stretching out beneath you like a dark meadow. Picture the slow creatures drifting through the water above it, their lights pulsing like distant constellations. Feel the deep sea's calmness settling into your mind, softening the edges of the world, shaping your thoughts into slow drifts of quiet. When you're ready for the next chapter, we will sink deeper still, moving into realms where the darkness becomes a soft cradle and where the ocean's secrets whisper even more softly in the endless blue night. The deep ocean around you grows stiller with every imagined meter of descent, as though the water itself was slowing time into long, velvety stretches. Above you, the last faint suggestions of the surface world have dissolved into nothing more than a distant memory, a shimmer of brightness too far away to touch these quiet depths. Yet down here, where darkness has weight and softness all at once, life continues in shapes and movements that feel like they emerged from the edges of dreams. The landscape is no longer simply a descent, it is an immersion into a world where everything breathes differently, thinks differently, and evolves according to rules, whispered only by the deep. All around, the water is thick with quiet, gentle pressure. It presses not like a forceful hand, but like a constant, steady embrace that leaves no empty space. This pressure, which would collapse the hull of an unprotected vessel in moments, feels strangely comforting in the imagination, as though the ocean were holding its inhabitants with unwavering patience. It is here that the deep sea reveals one of its most profound truths, that environments which seem inhospitable from afar can, to those shaped by them, become sanctuaries of perfect balance. As we drift farther into this realm, the seafloor becomes a landscape of broad plains, steep canyons, and rugged ridges carved by tectonic movements that unfold at glacial paces. These underwater mountains and trenches rise and fall like the slow pulse of an ancient earth. Some slopes are coated with fine sediment, pale as distant moonlight. Others are dotted with sponges and branching corals that resemble delicate frost formations more than anything living. The landscape is almost entirely still, yet it hums with the quiet presence of life, adapted to move in ways barely perceptible. In this muted world, the creatures who scrape out an existence do so with a quiet finesse that feels both fragile and resilient. Many of them are detritivores, beings that sift through the drifting remains falling from above. On the sea floor, brittle stars stretch their long limbs like slow-moving shadows, sweeping particles of food toward their central bodies. Their motions are so graceful that they seem choreographed, as though guided by some gentle underwater breeze that exists only in these depths. Their movements form an unhurried dance, each gesture deliberate, each trace of motion carried through the water like a long sigh. Nearby, sea cucumbers crawl across the sediment in slow, plodding arcs, their tube feet anchoring them gently to the ground. Their bodies, flexible and elongated, seem almost like drifting ribbons as they move, bending with every subtle shift of current. Sea cucumbers play one of the most important roles in this environment. They recycle nutrients from the sea floor, turning detritus into material that enriches the surrounding sediments. Their slow grazing creates a rhythm of renewal, a patient turning of the ocean's quiet wheel of life. They are reminders that even the smallest and softest among us maintain a place of quiet significance. With each creature we encounter, the deep sea unfurls more of its understated beauty. The pressure, the cold, the darkness, what seems inhospitable becomes the foundation for an entire world of adaptations so fine-tuned that they feel like poetry written into biology. Every cell in every organism here reflects a long lineage of survival in silence, shaped not by speed or aggression, but by the gentle, persistent flow of time. Further along the seafloor, faint ripples appear in the sediment, where a small current stirs. This is sometimes caused by the movement of a larger creature, something that navigates the deep with the slow authority of a being perfectly at home in darkness. One such creature is the deep-sea chimera, often called a ghost shark. It is not, in fact, a shark, but a distant relative that parted evolutionary ways hundreds of millions of years ago. The chimera glides through the water with a flat, wing-like motion of its fins, giving the impression of flight rather than swimming. Its eyes, pale and luminous, reflect the faintest traces of bioluminescence drifting in the water, while its almost ethereal body blends seamlessly into the darkness. The chimera's movements are enchanting. It seems to hover more than swim, its fins barely disturbing the water around it. Its quiet grace feels like the deep sea's own breath, moving through the water in long, steady strokes. It feeds on small creatures hidden within the sediment, using sensory organs on its snout to detect faint electrical signals. These sensitive organs act like a sixth sense, allowing it to perceive life through patterns of subtle energy. Imagining the chimera navigating this world through sensations invisible to human perception evokes a profound kind of calm, a reminder that there are ways of perceiving and understanding reality beyond sight, beyond sound, beyond the surface layers of awareness. A little farther along, the environment shifts yet again as hydrothermal vents begin to appear in the distance. These vents, sometimes called black smokers, billow hot, mineral-rich water into the surrounding cold, creating plumes that shimmer like rising smoke in slow motion. The water emerging from these vents can reach temperatures hotter than boiling, but it dissipates into the frigid sea almost instantly, creating turbulent clouds that drift upward. Around these vents thrive ecosystems so unique that they were once considered impossible. Here, life is not driven by sunlight but by chemosynthesis, the ability of certain bacteria to transform minerals and chemicals from the vents into energy. This remarkable process forms the foundation of one of the most extraordinary communities on Earth. Tube worms rise in towering clusters around the vents, their bright red plumes waving gently in the water like slow flames. These worms have no mouths and no digestive systems. Instead, they rely on symbiotic bacteria living inside their bodies. The bacteria convert the vent's mineral-rich liquid into energy, sustaining both themselves and the worms in a quiet partnership of mutual survival. The tube worm's plumes are delicate, feather-like structures that filter the water for necessary chemicals. Watching them sway in the shifting currents feels like watching a field of flowers in a slow, underwater wind, a forest of soft crimson and ivory forming one of the most surreal gardens on the planet. Beside the tube, Worms live deep-sea mussels, clams, and other organisms whose entire existence relies on chemosynthetic bacteria. Though they appear completely alien, their community mirrors the delicate interdependence found in sunlit ecosystems above. Even in the deepest, darkest environments, life finds a way to build connections, to share energy, to weave a web of coexistence. In this realization lies a quiet, comforting truth: that cooperation, even in places of immense pressure and extreme cold, can shape an entire world. As the hydrothermal vent fields fade behind us, the deep sea returns to its gentler whisper. The water grows calm again, settling into long, expansive stretches of darkness that feel like a night sky with no horizon. The only stars are the creatures themselves, those bioluminescent beings that glow from within. Some produce brief, shimmering pulses. Others leave slow trails of light as they drift. Some glow only when touched or disturbed, responding to the faintest vibration. These living lights form a tapestry of moving constellations that shift and swirl with each passing current, painting luminous shapes across the black canvas of the deep. Imagine drifting among these glowing creatures now, as though floating through a quiet galaxy hidden beneath the waves. Some are comb jellies with their rainbow-lit cilia. Others are lanternfish, their bodies patterned with small glowing organs that emit a steady blue-green light. The lanternfish uses this bioluminescence as a form of camouflage, matching the faint glow from above so that predators beneath them cannot see their silhouette. As they rise and fall in daily migrations, these tiny fish contribute to one of the largest animal movements on Earth, known as the diel vertical migration, a slow, nightly ascent that brings entire swarms of life closer to the surface in search of food, before sinking back into darkness at dawn. The scale of this migration is staggering. Billions of fish and invertebrates participate in this nightly journey, yet each individual moves at its own gentle pace, gliding upward and downward in unhurried waves. It is a rhythm that spans the entire planet, connecting the sunlit surface with the lightless depths. Even though the creatures cannot see the sun from their deep homes, its presence still shapes their world. It influences their feeding patterns, their movements, their instincts. And so, even in the darkness, the imprint of the sun remains, weaving together the distant layers of the ocean like threads in a vast tapestry. Moving alongside these drifting lights, the slow passage of time becomes almost tangible. You can imagine the water around you thickening with calm, as though the deep sea's stillness were seeping inward. And if you feel comfortable, allow your eyes or your thoughts to grow just a little heavier, the third and final, gentle relaxation reminder. Let the quiet rhythm of this deep world soothe the inner currents of your mind, smoothing them into long, soft waves. As you drift, another remarkable creature emerges from the darkness, the deep-sea jellyfish known as the bloody belly comb jelly. Its name comes from the rich, wine-red hue of its body, a coloration that conceals the glow of any prey it has consumed. In the darkness, many animals produce bioluminescence as they struggle, creating flashes of light that could reveal predators in the act of feeding. But the bloody belly comb jelly's red pigmentation absorbs this light, hiding it entirely. In a world where red wavelengths of light do not travel, the jelly appears almost invisible. It glides like a moving shadow, its form outlined only by faint ripples shimmering across its surface. Then there is the deep-sea dragonfish, an elegant predator whose slender body and transparent fangs flash in the faintest glimmers of light. Unlike many deep-sea creatures, the dragonfish can produce red bioluminescence, an extremely rare trait at these depths. Because most creatures cannot see red light, the dragonfish effectively carries a secret flashlight that allows it to illuminate prey without being detected. This strange, concealed glow is a powerful advantage in the darkness, yet the dragonfish uses it with the same measured calm as everything else in the deep. There is no frenzy in its movements, only the silent precision of survival shaped over millions of years. The deeper we drift, the more the world begins to feel timeless. The seafloor stretches into vast plains that echo with the memory of geological shifts long past. Occasionally, a slow-moving shark appears, perhaps a Greenland shark or a sleeper shark moving with ponderous, ancient motions. These sharks live incredibly long lives, often spanning centuries, drifting through the deep at speeds so slow that they seem more like drifting logs than predators. Their presence is grounding, a reminder of the ocean's immense timescale, where life unfolds in centuries rather than years, where patience becomes a way of being. Near these sharks rise glass sponge reefs, towering crystalline structures formed by organisms that filter water so slowly and steadily that some reefs have persisted for thousands of years. Their silica skeletons are as delicate as spun glass, yet they stand resilient in the deep, forming homes for small creatures that hide among their lattices. Watching them, you can imagine the quiet growth, layer upon layer, built in the stillness of cold water, untouched by light, but thriving in the eternal night. The water around you seems to slow even further. The currents diminish, becoming gentle strokes of movement that barely shift the sediment. This is the abyssal plain, one of the largest environments on Earth, a place of near-perfect stability where temperatures hover near freezing and the environment remains largely unchanged for millennia. Life here moves with a solemn grace. Some fish hover motionless for long periods, conserving energy. Others drift in small groups, moving as if guided by invisible cords that pull them through the darkness. Despite the stillness, there is life everywhere. Tiny crustaceans scurry across the mud. Small, translucent fish flicker past in gentle motions. Even the worms buried beneath the sediment move with steady purpose, processing the organic matter that sustains the seafloor community. It is a world where nothing is wasted and every fragment of fallen life becomes nourishment, passed along through countless quiet hands. In this deep realm, the idea of noise seems foreign. Sound travels differently here, quickly, clearly, stretching across great distances. Yet few creatures use loud calls. Most communication is chemical, electrical, or through subtle vibrations. The deep sea is a place where the loudest thing is often the quiet movement of a fin or the distant rumble of shifting earth. This absence of noise creates a sense of immense calm, as though the ocean itself were resting. And as you imagine this world, you may feel a similar stillness spreading through the spaces of your thoughts, settling over them like gentle silt. The deep sea, with all its pressure and darkness, becomes a place not of fear, but of profound tranquility, a sanctuary hidden beneath miles of water, where the pace of existence moves so slowly that even time feels drowsy. As we reach the close of this chapter of the journey, imagine yourself suspended in this world, drifting with the quiet creatures who inhabit the deep. Above you, lanternfish rise toward the faint memory of the sun. Around you, dragonfish glide like soft shadows. Beneath you, the abyssal plain stretches out into an endless horizon of calm. Let the deep sea cradle your thoughts in its age-old stillness, allowing any last trace of tension to dissolve as gently as a ripple fading into the dark. In the next part of our journey, we will explore even more mysterious corners of the deep ocean, connecting the physical beauty of these creatures with the hidden emotional depths within ourselves. For now, simply rest in the dark blue quiet, floating in the soft company of the ocean's most patient and enduring beings. The deep ocean continues to unfold around you as if the world were a great, slow-breathing organism, pulsing with ancient rhythms that long predate the surface civilizations above. Here, in the vast stillness, time unspools differently. Minutes stretch into soft, undisturbed expanses, and the boundary between the outer world and the inner world begins to blur. The creatures that drift through this darkness do so with a calmness that seems to seep into the imagination, encouraging the mind to loosen its grip on urgency. The deeper we venture, the more the ocean reveals its quiet truth, that beneath pressure and darkness, unfamiliar forms of peace have evolved, delicate yet enduring, steady as the heartbeat of the planet. As the abyssal plains stretch endlessly in all directions, the landscape begins to shift once more. Great trenches rise and fall like the folds of a slow-moving curtain. These trenches, some deeper than the highest mountains on Earth, are tall, form immense chasms carved by the movement of tectonic plates. The water here is unimaginably cold and dark, and the pressure is so immense that each square inch of space experiences forces equivalent to thousands of kilograms. Yet despite these extremes, life persists in shapes so subtle and so evolved that they appear designed by the deep itself. In these silent canyons, the snailfish thrives. It is a surprisingly delicate creature, translucent and soft-bodied, with skin so thin that the outlines of its organs and bones can be faintly seen. Far from fragile in its own home, the snailfish is perfectly adapted to withstand the crushing force of these depths. Its body lacks the dense calcium structures common to surface fish, replacing them with cartilage and flexible tissues that bend without resistance. Its proteins are stabilized by specialized molecules known as TMAO, which prevent its internal structures from collapsing. The snailfish glides through the water with an ease that defies the unimaginable pressure around it. Its graceful movement, a testament to nature's capacity to shape life in harmony with its environment. Above the snailfish, amphipods, small, shrimp-like creatures drift and scurry across the seafloor. These tiny beings play a crucial role in nutrient cycling. They can survive extraordinary depths, and some species have been found at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. Amphipods, though small, are essential recyclers of the deep sea. They break down organic debris, consuming the fallen remains of creatures that once lived in the upper layers of the ocean. These remains, however small, become part of the intricate cycle that sustains life. As amphipods nibble on these precious fragments, They transform them into nourishment that other organisms can use. The deep sea's food chain is not built on abundance but on careful, continuous recycling, a quiet, patient sharing of resources that echoes through the entire abyss. In the dark distance, the soft glow of bioluminescent organisms flickers like faint lanterns drifting along unseen currents. Many of these lights come from species so small that they are rarely noticed except when they illuminate the water around them. These tiny glimmers serve many purposes: communication, camouflage, misdirection, and sometimes even attraction. In a world without sunlight, these living sparks create the only illumination. Some pulse gently, while others leave longer trails. Some flash briefly when disturbed, becoming momentary stars. Over time, the patterns of these lights give the impression of an underwater night sky, a mirror of the cosmos above, but formed entirely from living beings moving through water. Even in the deepest trenches, where darkness becomes nearly absolute, these lights flicker with surprising frequency. They appear along the bodies of deep-sea shrimp, whose bright blue flashes confuse predators. They sparkle along the fins of certain fish, forming quiet constellations that communicate presence to others of their kind. And they shimmer along the delicate forms of deep-sea octopuses, whose bodies glow with faint, ghostly hues that seem to hover between visibility and dream. The deep ocean, often imagined as bleak and barren, is instead filled with gentle luminescence, not enough to illuminate landscapes, but enough to reveal the soft pulse of life. Among these glowing figures, the deep-sea octopus, known as Grimper, sometimes called the Dumbo octopus, moves with a grace that borders on the magical. With ear-like fins that flap softly like wings, it glides through the water more like a drifting balloon than a swimmer. Every movement is measured, slow, and unhurried, reflecting the scarcity of resources in its environment. The Dumbo octopus feeds primarily on small crustaceans and worms that it encounters near the seafloor, enfolding them gently within its arms. This soft, rounded creature is one of the deepest living octopuses known, capable of thriving at depths where sunlight could never reach and where the cold would paralyze most organisms. Its presence in the deep feels almost emblematic, a creature so gentle, moving with silent confidence through a world that outsiders would consider inhospitable. It is a reminder that life does not need to be fierce to survive. It can be soft, slow, and deliberate, shaped by patience and subtlety. Observing such creatures even in the imagination encourages a similar softness to arise in the mind, a kind of quiet acceptance that mirrors the calm movements of deep-sea life. Not far from where the Dumbo octopus drifts, another elegant figure emerges, the tripod fish. This strange and mesmerizing creature has long, slender rays extending from its fins, allowing it to perch upright on the seafloor like a delicate sculpture. In the dense darkness, the tripod fish holds a stillness that is almost meditative. Its elongated fin rays act as both sensory structures and stilts. When the water is still, the fish stands motionless, feeling for vibrations carried through the sediment. It spreads its fins like fragile wings, waiting for small crustaceans or other prey to pass within reach. Without the need for pursuit, it lets the ocean bring meals to its waiting mouth. The tripod fish's unique posture and slow, steady life, connected intimately with the deep sea's rhythms. Its stillness is its greatest strength, a way to conserve energy and to feel the world through the subtle currents that flow around its delicate limbs. In imagining this quiet sentinel, standing upon the seafloor with patient grace, one might notice the deep ocean's extraordinary capacity for calm, a calm that has shaped entire species into expressions of tranquility. As we continue drifting across the abyssal plains, the landscape shifts once more into broad stretches of sediment, interrupted occasionally by the soft rise of underwater hills. On these hills live clusters of sea lilies, ancient relatives of starfish and sea urchins. With long stalks anchoring them to the seafloor, sea lilies extend feathery arms into the water, catching drifting particles of food. Their arms wave gently in the faint currents, forming gardens of quiet, underwater flowers. These creatures have existed for hundreds of millions of years, hardly changing over time. Their presence in the deep is like a whisper from Earth's distant past, reminding us of the continuity of life across unimaginable spans of time. The more we explore, the clearer it becomes that the deep ocean is not a barren world of struggle, but a realm shaped by balance and adaptation. Beneath immense pressure, life has found ways not just to survive, but to flourish in delicate equilibrium. Bioluminescence provides not only illumination, but communication. Soft tissues provide resilience rather than vulnerability. Slow metabolisms and patient hunting strategies transform scarcity into opportunity. There is a quiet wisdom in these adaptations, a sense that life has learned to exist in harmony with the environment rather than fight against it. Even the predators here reflect this philosophy. Consider the rat-tail fish, another denizen of the deep. With its elongated body and tapering tail, it glides just above the seafloor, searching for small invertebrates. Its movements are cautious, deliberate, as though tuned to the minimal energy budget required for life in the abyss. The rat-tail fish is not aggressive or hurried. It is attuned to the slow pulse of its environment. Its sensory organs are finely tuned to detect vibrations and scents in the water, allowing it to locate prey without wasting energy. The rat-tail is a patient hunter, moving with the same softened pace that defines the deep sea itself. Nearby, large, single-celled organisms called xenophyophores spread their delicate forms across the sediment. Despite being only a single cell, some xenophyophores grow larger than dinner plates, forming intricate lattice-like structures made from particles they gather from the seafloor. Their bodies become habitats for tiny creatures seeking shelter, creating micro-ecosystems within their fragile frameworks. These enormous single cells are among the strangest and most mesmerizing beings in the deep, capable of living at extreme depths where even most fish cannot survive. They thrive in slow, stable environments, drawing nutrients from the sediment through processes barely perceptible yet essential to the ecosystem. As we drift past these immense single cells, the awareness of time continues to stretch. The deep sea, with its slow cycles and steady rhythms, invites a kind of quiet reflection. Each creature we encounter embodies a lesson in patience, adaptation. The more we move through this world, the more its quiet cadence becomes familiar, like a peaceful melody woven from darkness and light. Eventually, the abyssal plain gives way to a more rugged landscape, the slopes of underwater mountains known as seamounts. These ancient formations rise thousands of meters from the sea floor, shaped by volcanic activity long past. Seamounts are oases in the deep ocean, places where currents flow more strongly, delivering nutrients that attract a surprising variety of life. Coral forests flourish here, forming intricate, branching structures that resemble frozen flames. These deep-sea corals grow incredibly slowly, often taking centuries to reach their full size. Their hard skeletons create habitats for fish, shrimp, and countless other organisms, turning seamounts into vibrant islands of biodiversity. In the shadows of these coral forests, deep-sea sharks glide with unhurried purpose. Species like the Portuguese dogfish and the blunt-nosed six-gill shark navigate the slopes with ancient ease, their movements smooth and quiet. Some of these sharks are among the oldest living vertebrates on the planet, capable of lifespans exceeding 200 years. Their slow growth and steady rhythms reflect the pace of the deep sea itself, a pace that allows for longevity and stability rather than speed and change. Watching these sharks drift through the coral forests is like watching time embodied in living form. Amid the coral structures, small fish species hide from predators, blending into the branches with remarkable subtlety. Crabs scuttle slowly across the coral surfaces, their movements precise. Starfish cling to the skeletons, feeding on the organic particles caught between the branches. Every creature here plays a part in the quiet balance that sustains these deep, cold ecosystems. The coral forests, though far removed from the warm, sunlit reefs of tropical shallows, possess a beauty all their own, shaped by patience and the soft interplay of life and mineral. As we drift upward along the seamount slope, the currents grow slightly stronger, carrying with them faint hints of water that has traveled across entire oceans. These currents move in slow spirals, shaped by the Earth's rotation, by temperature gradients, and by the contours of the underwater mountains. They create pathways that deep-sea animals follow across great distances. Many creatures travel along these currents without ever rising toward the surface, navigating the deep waters like nomads who drift along invisible highways. In imagining this movement, one can sense the unity of the ocean, how each layer, each current, each creature contributes to the endless, flowing story of life beneath the waves. Farther along the slope, another extraordinary being becomes visible, the deep-sea siphonophore. This creature, though often mistaken for a single organism, is actually a colony made up of many specialized individuals that function together like the organs of one body. Some of these colonial organisms can stretch for dozens of meters, making them among the longest life forms on Earth. Their translucent bodies shimmer with soft lights, undulating in long, ribbon-like trails. Some sections of the siphonophore capture prey with stinging cells, while others focus on movement or reproduction. Together, they form a collective being that moves through the deep like a drifting tapestry of light. Watching a siphonophore glide through the water feels like observing a living thread of starlight woven into the darkness. Its movements are slow and fluid, each section responding subtly to the currents. The coordination of the colony is so seamless that it appears to be guided by a single will, even though it is made up of many individuals. This unity of function and form mirrors the interconnectedness of the deep sea itself, a world where cooperation, even at the cellular level, becomes a way to endure the vastness. Eventually, the seamount falls away behind us, and we find ourselves drifting once more into open water. Here the darkness feels infinite again, though the presence of bioluminescent life keeps it from being empty. The soft glow of drifting beings creates a comforting tapestry around you, a reminder that even in the deepest solitude, there is connection. The ocean, in all its layers, sustains itself through these quiet, luminous exchanges. The deeper we drift into this journey, the more the deep ocean reveals itself as a mirror of inner quiet. In its slowness, we find permission to slow. In its darkness, we find a kind of restful dreaming. In the calm presence of its creatures, each one adapted to thrive under pressure, we find reflections of resilience shaped not by hardness but by softness, patience, and surrender to the environment. As you linger in this quiet depth, imagine the subtle currents brushing past, carrying stories from distant waters. Imagine the slow rise and fall of the creatures drifting around you, their movements harmonized with the deep's gentle rhythms. The edges of this world soften, blending into a peaceful haze where boundaries blur, and the ocean feels like an extension of your own calm. Part 4 brings us closer to the heart of the deep ocean's message, a message not of struggle, but of gentle balance and quiet transformation. In the final chapter of our journey, we will gather the threads woven through these depths, exploring the symbolic and emotional resonances of this landscape, while gliding toward a peaceful close. For now, simply drift in the soft dark, letting the calm of the abyss settle around you like a quiet, endless night. The deep ocean stretches around you now in a sweeping, endless quiet, as though the entire world has paused to let its own thoughts drift into stillness. The vast plains, the ridges and trenches, the drifting constellations of bioluminescence, all of it surrounds you like a cradle built from darkness and time. Here, at the farthest reaches of our descent, the ocean feels older than memory, older than the shape of continents or the pulse of tides. It is a world sculpted by pressure and silence, where life has learned to grow slowly, deliberately, with a kind of patient grace that resonates through every current. As you drift through this final chapter of our journey, the deep sea begins to soften into something symbolic, a place not only alive in the physical sense, but alive in the way it mirrors the quietest parts of the human mind. In this depth, where the absence of sunlight is absolute, there is no sense of hurry. The water, thick with stillness, carries only the softest motions of creatures who move with the rhythm of centuries. The lanternfish that rise each night to feed are far above us now, leaving behind a black expanse lined only with faint glimmers from beings who thrive at the threshold of the abyss. Every so often, a tiny speck of light flickers like a distant star before fading, swallowed gently by the dark. The deep sea has an uncanny way of feeling both infinite and intimate, as though the darkness itself draws close, not in a threatening way, but in a comforting embrace that holds you suspended without effort. Far off, a faint warmth begins to ripple through the cold. It is not from the sun. No sunlight has touched this world for eons, but from vents in the seafloor that release slow, billowing clouds of mineral-rich water. These hydrothermal vents, scattered like rare lanterns across the abyssal floor, sustain ecosystems so unique and strange that they challenged our understanding of life itself when first discovered. Now, as we drift near one of these quiet, brimming columns, the shimmering haze that rises from its mouth dances like heat above a desert horizon. The shimmering forms blur and blend into the water, a soft mirage of motion that repeats itself endlessly. Around the vent, ghostly pale crabs shuffle through mineral deposits, searching for bits of nourishment brought by the vent's chemical stew. Their movements are gentle, almost practiced, as though they have learned to read the faint signature of warmth that signals food. Nearby, white, feathery worms sway in the currents, their delicate plumes collecting chemical traces that feed the bacteria living inside them. These worms, living symbols of cooperation, turn the vent's harsh chemicals into sustenance. They teach us again and again that life can root itself in places we once thought barren. In the depths, survival becomes a slow dance of necessity and invention, a symphony of adaptation, played out over millions of years. As you drift past these vent communities, the water cools again to the near-freezing stability that defines the abyss. The world regains its quiet, its darkness, its patient rhythms. The vent fades behind you, its faint glow dissolving into the distance like a candle slowly carried away. In its place arises another shimmering presence, the delicate outline of a gelatinous creature, its body so translucent that it seems sculpted from the water itself. This is the deep-sea Medusa, a jellyfish whose bell pulses with slow, even contractions, propelling it upward with a grace so effortless that it feels almost unreal. Light refracts softly along the edges of its bell, casting pearlescent hues that ripple with each gentle movement. The Medusa's slow ascent recalls the rise of bubbles toward a distant surface, but in the deep sea, it is not heading toward light. It is simply following a rhythm older than thought. Its tentacles trail behind it like thin threads of silver, drifting in slow spirals that echo the shape of galaxies. Watching it, you can feel the ocean's serenity welling up inside you, gathering into a quiet pool of calm. There is something deeply soothing about its motion, the way it pulses steadily like a heartbeat, the way its body glows with faint light that ebbs and flows like the phases of the moon. It is a creature born entirely of softness, thriving in a realm defined by extremes. As you drift onward, faint silhouettes begin to take shape ahead, shapes long and elegant, moving with the quiet poise of creatures accustomed to darkness. A small group of deep-sea fish passes by, their bodies elongated, their fins thin and ribbon-like. Their eyes are large and glassy, tuned to catch even the smallest glimmer of bioluminescent light. They move as a loose collection, not in tight schools like their shallow water relatives, but in a gentle constellation of shared motion. Each one drifts slightly differently, yet they remain close enough to suggest a quiet companionship. This companionship is subtle, not born of necessity, but of a shared environment, a shared rhythm. The deeper you drift into this world, the more it begins to feel like a sanctuary. The creatures, shaped by millions of years of darkness and pressure, embody a serenity that comes from deep adaptation. They do not fight their environment, they flow with it, shaped by it, nourished by it. Their very existence becomes a metaphor for resilience, not through force, but through softness, through the gentle surrender to the currents that move through their world. The deep sea teaches that even under enormous pressure, life can glow, drift, endure, and even flourish. Soon, the abyss begins to shift once more, not in depth but in mood. A faint, steady movement appears in the distance, like the slow rise of a tide. This movement is created by vast schools of detritus-feeding fish that drift across the plains in loose waves. They move in patterns dictated not by speed but by the subtle shape of currents that flow from distant parts of the ocean. These creatures, though unassuming, form a crucial part of the deep-sea ecosystem. By consuming organic material that falls from above, they transform it, making it available again to the life that thrives around the vents and across the seafloor. Their existence is a quiet reminder of how deeply interconnected the ocean truly is. As they drift past, each fish seems to pulse with a faint internal glow, some with small bioluminescent spots that help them communicate or attract mates. These lights blink gently, irregularly, like a field of wandering fireflies carried on a breeze so slow that it feels like the breath of the sea itself. The blinking lights recede slowly behind you, fading into a soft constellation that eventually becomes another gentle memory folded into the vastness of the abyss. Beyond this drifting field of lights, the ocean floor begins to rise in subtle contours. The ascent is so gradual and soft that it barely registers, but slowly the darkness around you lightens, not with brightness, but with texture. Shadows gain shape. The water grows just slightly less still. This is not the ascent toward the surface, but toward the calmer mid-layers above, where life moves in delicate balance between darkness and the faintest whispers of light. It is here that the deep and the upper ocean meet in a subtle transition, a place where creatures from both realms occasionally cross paths in their migrations. As you drift through this transition zone, the faint glimmers of bioluminescence grow more numerous. Here, countless small organisms flash briefly before fading, their lights functioning like whispers through the water. Some use these flashes to confuse predators. Others use them to find mates. Still others emit light involuntarily when disturbed. The result is a soft, shimmering field of pulses that rise and fall like the soft twinkling of distant stars. Even in silence, the ocean is full of communication signals that flicker across the darkness, stories told in glimmers. As you glide through these twinkling fields, you may find yourself reflecting on the journey so far. The creatures you have encountered: giant squid, vampire squid, anglerfish, gulper eels, comb jellies, blobfish, chimeras, dragonfish, isopods, each embody a facet of existence shaped by patience and adaptation. They remind us that life is capable of flourishing under immense pressure, that beauty can emerge in places untouched by sunlight, and that the softest beings can endure the harshest realms. In their glow, there is wisdom. In their drifting movements, there is peace. This is the moment where the journey inward begins to reflect the journey outward. Just as the deep sea contains layers of mystery, we too contain depths shaped by quiet pressures, memories, emotions, and hidden forms of resilience. The creatures of the abyss become metaphors for the unlit corners of the mind, the places where we hold old stories, where we adapt silently, where we cultivate small lights that guide us through darkness. And in recognizing these inner depths, a gentle sense of calm begins to bloom. The ascent continues, not toward brightness, but toward softness. The deep ocean's currents lighten, and the world around you becomes less like a dream and more like the quiet moment between waking and sleep. In this space, the lines between ocean and imagination blur. You are no longer drifting through a purely physical world, but through a space shaped by the rhythm of your own breath and the settling of your thoughts. Ahead lies a final glowing shape, a large, slow-moving jelly known as the deep-sea crown jelly. Its bell is shaped like a delicate, translucent umbrella whose edges ripple in long, measured waves. Its tentacles trail behind it like flowing ribbons of light, each pulse illuminating their lengths with soft blues and greens. As you drift up beneath it, the jelly moves with such unhurried grace that it seems to dance in the water, each ripple echoing the gentle contraction of a heartbeat. This creature becomes the final guardian of our descent, the last luminous figure before the journey transitions inward. The crown jelly drifts upward, and you drift upward with it, not toward the surface, but toward a layer of consciousness drifting toward rest. The darkness grows warmer somehow, softer, as though the ocean itself is preparing to let you slip into a deeper stillness. The crown jelly fades slowly behind you, leaving your mind filled with its trailing lights. Ahead, the deep sea becomes ever quieter, ever darker, ever more like the calm space that forms just before sleep. The water around you thickens into stillness. The faint glimmers of bioluminescence become fewer, softer, until they resemble distant memories fading into the background. As the final layers of the deep embrace you, imagine the entire ocean settling into silence. Imagine its vast plains becoming still. Imagine its glowing creatures drifting into rest, their lights dimming into calm. Imagine the slow, unhurried movement of currents smoothing into near-perfect quiet. In this moment, the deep sea is no longer a place outside of you, but a place within you, a sanctuary of stillness that you carry with you into sleep. Allow the last impressions of the journey to settle gently, the soft pulse of the jellyfish, the drifting lanterns of fish, the delicate wings of the Dumbo octopus, the ghostly glide of the chimera, the quiet gardens of the vent communities, the whispering corals of the seamounts, the slow constellations of bioluminescent stars glowing for no reason other than to exist. These images wrap around you like a warm, dark blanket woven from water and memory. And now, as the journey comes to its quiet close, imagine yourself rising just enough to feel the deep sea's calm settle permanently into your thoughts. You bring with you its patience, its softness, its quiet endurance. The ocean, in all its depth and darkness, has shown its wonders, and now it offers you its most precious gift, rest. Thank you for drifting through this world tonight, through creatures shaped by pressure and time, through landscapes older than continents, through darkness illuminated only by life's gentle glow. May the calm of the deep sea stay with you long after this moment, steady and constant as the ocean's own heartbeat. Sleep well, dear listener. May your dreams drift softly, like light through the deepest waters. Good night.